I'm April, 37, standing in the opulent hall of our company's 75th anniversary celebration, a glass of champagne in my hand. I watched in a daze as my father, Henry, 62, a once strong and respected figure in the furniture industry, and my younger brother, Leo, 34, beamed with false smiles. They were announcing Leo as the new CEO of our family-owned furniture business, a business I'd single-handedly saved from the brink of bankruptcy. The flash of cameras was blinding, and the chatter of the guests around me seemed to fade into a dull hum. I felt a cold knot in my stomach, but they had no idea that I'd uncovered their treacherous plan months ago. The pain of betrayal was like a knife stabbing at my heart, but it had been replaced by a cold, calculated determination. Let me take you back to where it all started. Before I was born, the family name, Thompson, had already made a mark in the furniture industry. My grandfather, George, a war veteran, started Thompson Furniture in his garage in 1945. With just his calloused hands and unwavering determination, he built a reputation for top-notch craftsmanship, turning a humble workshop into a regional powerhouse. I remember the sweet smell of sawdust and the rhythmic sound of saws and hammers from my earliest childhood. As a little girl, I'd follow my father around the factory floor like a shadow. He'd introduce me to every craftsman, his large hand resting on my shoulder, and proudly tell them, "April sees the world differently. She notices things others miss. She'll take this business to places I could never reach." Those words became the foundation of my identity. While other girls were into ballet and soccer, I was deeply engrossed in quarterly earnings reports and supply chain puzzles that my father turned into fun games for me. I loved every moment of it. My brother, Leo, on the other hand, never shared my passion. He spent his weekends with friends, hardly caring about our family's legacy. Dad would just wave it off, saying, "Boys will be boys. Leo will find his way." Our mother, Grace, was the gentle soul in our family. She encouraged me to enjoy my childhood while also supporting my love for the business. She was like a lighthouse, guiding our family through the storms. But when cancer took her when I was 22 and Leo was 19, something in our family dynamic shifted. Without her warmth and mediation, Dad and Leo grew closer, and I often felt like an outsider. I focused on my studies with unwavering determination. I graduated at the top of my class from Wharton with an MBA. Prestigious consulting firms were eager to hire me, and I joined McKinsey. Dad was extremely proud, but never pressured me to come back to the family business. "Gain some experience first," he advised. "The company will be here when you're ready." For 3 years, I thrived in the high-pressure world of consulting, honing my skills and building a valuable network. Meanwhile, Thompson Furniture started to decline. Dad, approaching his 60s, struggled to adapt to the changing market. Leo, who had finally joined the company after changing majors multiple times in college, did little more than collect his executive salary. Then, the fateful call came. Dad had a major heart attack at the office. I flew back home immediately, taking an indefinite leave from McKinsey. What I found was a disaster. The business was in far worse shape than I'd imagined. We were 3 months behind on payments to suppliers, sales had dropped by 40% over 2 years, and the bank was threatening to call in loans that would end our family's legacy. Looking at Dad in the hospital bed, his once commanding presence diminished, I made a decision that would change my life. I told him I'd step in temporarily, just until he recovered. Little did I know that temporarily would turn into 12 long years of sacrifice. Stepping into Dad's shoes at Thompson Furniture was like trying to stop a speeding train with my bare hands. The company was losing money rapidly. Key employees were updating their resumes, and our flagship showroom looked like it was from the 1980s. The first week, when I reviewed the financial reports, I felt a knot in my stomach. We had less than 6 months before complete insolvency. The old guard, like our production manager, Carl, 65, who had worked with my grandfather, was resistant. He crossed his arms and looked down at me during our first meeting. "With all due respect, Miss Thompson, we've been making furniture the same way for 50 years. Your fancy MBA won't change what works." I slid the financial reports across the table and retorted, Does this look like it's working to you, Carl? That first year was a living hell. I worked 16-hour days and often slept on the leather sofa in my office. My fiancé at the time, Jake, grew increasingly frustrated with my long hours and constant work-related phone calls. One night, after I missed his birthday dinner because a major client was threatening to pull their order, he asked, "It's always the business first with you, isn't it?" I assured him it was temporary, but our engagement ended 6 months later. Jake wasn't wrong. The business had consumed me. Meanwhile, Leo maintained his executive title and salary but rarely showed up at the office. When he did, it was just to charm visitors or have long lunches with Dad's old golf friends. He had the Thompson name and charm, but no real commitment. With my personal life in ruins, I poured all my energy into saving the company. I made changes that almost caused revolts. I switched to sustainable materials before it became trendy, modernized our classic designs to appeal to younger customers, and invested heavily in digital marketing when our competitors were still relying on print catalogs. The turning point came when I secured a partnership with Restoration Haven, a fast, growing national retailer. I spent weeks preparing a pitch that combined our traditional craftsmanship with our new sustainable practices. The night before the presentation, I was alone in the factory, running my hands over a walnut dining table my grandfather had designed. "Help me save what you built," I whispered. The deal with Restoration Haven changed everything. Within 18 months, we went from near bankruptcy to profitability. By the third year, we doubled our workforce and modernized our production facilities. I developed our signature heritage collection, which reinterpreted my grandfather's classic designs with contemporary materials and functionality. Dad recovered gradually and returned to work in a reduced capacity. He publicly praised my leadership, but privately questioned some of my more progressive decisions. Leo remained on the periphery, always trying to position himself as part of the leadership in company materials. As the years went by, the company thrived. By the 5th year, our annual revenue reached $20 million, and by the 10th year, we were approaching $30 million and debt-free. I had sacrificed my personal life, but the results were undeniable. However, my success sowed the seeds of betrayal. About 6 months ago, during a routine Monday morning meeting, Dad mentioned that he and Leo had lunch with our banker over the weekend. "Just a casual lunch," he said, waving off my raised eyebrow. It was strange because I handled all our banking relationships as CEO. When I called the account manager later, he seemed evasive. Over the next few weeks, I noticed other oddities. Leo, who usually spent more time on the golf course, suddenly became very interested in the company's operations. He started showing up at the office 3 or 4 days a week, scheduling meetings with department heads and asking for copies of contracts and financial reports. "Just trying to contribute more, sis. You've carried the load long enough," he said with that charming smile. But Dad became increasingly evasive. I walked into his office twice and found him quickly ending phone calls. Calendar invitations for meetings I usually attended stopped showing up in my inbox. One day, as I approached his office, I overheard a fragment of conversation. Leo's voice drifted out. "Restructuring the leadership makes sense before the international push. April's done great, but..." They fell silent when I knocked. Inside, I found Dad, Leo, and Victor, the owner of our chief competitor, Victor's Furniture. The 3 of them looked like kids caught in a prank. "April, we were just discussing industry trends," Dad said too brightly. Victor shook my hand and said, "Your father speaks highly of your accomplishments. Turning this company around is no small feat." I noted his use of the past tense. "I'd love to hear your insights on the European market, considering our expansion plans," I replied. After Victor left, I asked directly what was going on. They assured me they were just exploring options for the international expansion. But a cold feeling settled in my stomach. Our office manager, Stella, 55, who had been with the company for 25 years, came to my office after hours. "I probably shouldn't say anything, but my loyalty is to this company and your grandfather's memory," she said, fidgeting with her glasses. She told me about the whispers among the long-time employees. Dad had been having closed-door meetings with lawyers, and Leo had been giving tours to investors without my knowledge. Most concerning, Victor had been seen leaving Dad's house late at night with what looked like contract documents. Once alone, I opened Dad's calendar. There was a pattern of meetings with lawyers, bankers, and Victor, all scheduled when I'd be busy with other things. The next day, I searched Dad's desk and found documents showing that he had transferred a significant portion of his shares to Leo over the past year. Our company lawyer, Brian, who I'd always considered a family friend, became very evasive when I asked about upcoming contract renewals. "These are routine things. Nothing to worry about until closer to the renewal date," he said without meeting my eyes. I also noticed Leo's sudden friendship with Victor. They started appearing in social media photos together at exclusive golf clubs and charity events. One photo showed them with their arms around each other, with the caption, "Exciting new ventures ahead with the furniture industry's brightest minds. Next generation, a family legacy." Our Sunday family dinners, which I'd always maintained even during the most stressful times of the company turnaround, became tense. Dad and Leo would make cryptic comments about the future of Thompson Furniture. After one particularly uncomfortable dinner, I made a desperate decision. I asked our IT director, Sam, who was extremely loyal to me after I'd approved his flexible schedule when his wife was diagnosed with MS, to install monitoring software on my office computer. "Someone's been accessing files without authorization. I need to know who and what they're looking at," I lied. 3 weeks later, I stayed late at the office. The building was eerily quiet. With a deep breath, I opened the monitoring program and started going through Dad's emails. What I found shattered my illusions. The first email, dated nearly a year ago, was from Dad to Victor. They agreed that my vision was too progressive for the long term and that Leo had more traditional ideas. They were planning to remove me as CEO and announce Leo at the 75th anniversary celebration, which coincided with the launch of my Heritage Collection. I also found an email draft for the board of directors, thanking me for my service during the restructuring period and wishing me well in my future endeavors. 12 years of my life reduced to a mere footnote. I printed the key documents, forwarded the critical emails to my personal account, and removed all traces of the monitoring software. As I gathered my things to leave, the weight of the betrayal crashed over me. I collapsed into my chair, and tears finally streamed down my face. My first instinct was to confront them, to expose their scheme at the next board meeting. My second was to take legal action. But as dawn broke outside my window, I realized that if they wanted to play chess, I was several moves ahead. The morning after the discovery, I arrived at the office as usual, dressed in my sharpest navy suit. I smiled at my colleagues, approved routine requests, and maintained my composure in a budget meeting. But inside, I was calculating my next steps. That evening, I called an old acquaintance, Laura, a tough, as nails attorney known for handling family business disputes. After I explained the situation, she said, "They're planning to push you out after you save the business? And your brother is trying to take credit for your work. This is a classic family business disaster." I told her I needed to understand my options and my leverage. Laura didn't sugarcoat it. Family business disputes are messy and expensive, and usually there are no real winners. Your best leverage is what the business needs that only you can provide. That conversation gave me my first strategic insight. I was the sole signatory required on the international expansion contracts. Without my signature, the expansion couldn't proceed. Over the next week, I carefully assessed my situation. I identified key employees who were loyal to me. There was Lily in marketing, whom I'd promoted against Dad's wishes when she returned from maternity leave. There was Ethan in product development, whose modern design approach I'd championed. And there was Mia in sales, who had thrived under my performance-based compensation system. I had quiet conversations with them, asking hypothetical questions about their career ambitions and loyalty to the company. Mia said, the culture you've built, the way you recognize performance over politics. There are rumors, April. People are worried about what happens if you step back." I also spent late nights gathering and organizing documentation of all my contributions, like the original sketches for the Heritage Collection and meeting notes. I created secure backups, being careful not to take any proprietary information. Laura connected me with an intellectual property attorney to help me understand what I owned. I reached out to our three largest clients, who together accounted for 40% of our revenue. I had lunch meetings with them, indirectly asking what they valued in our relationship. One of them, the purchasing director of Restoration Haven, said, "We partnered with Thompson because of you. Your commitment to sustainability, your quality control, and your transparency. The Thompson name got us in the door, but you're why we stay." I also analyzed our main competitor, Victor's Furniture. Victor had always focused on traditional high-end furniture with little innovation. His company was profitable but stagnant, appealing to an older demographic, which was the direction dads seemed to want to take. The biggest challenge was the financial aspect. Starting a new venture would require a large amount of capital. After consulting with a financial advisor, I made the difficult decision to take out a personal loan against my historic Victorian house, a house I'd painstakingly restored over the past decade. As the 75th anniversary celebration approached, I maintained a perfect facade at work. 2 weeks before the event, I ordered a custom-made vibrant red gown. If they wanted to sideline me, I'd make sure I couldn't be ignored. During the final preparations, I noticed Leo practicing his acceptance speech in the showroom after hours. As the new CEO, I look forward to honoring our traditions while bringing fresh perspective to Thompson Furniture, he rehearsed, nervously adjusting his tie. I stepped back quietly, a mix of pity and determination welling up inside me. 3 days before the event, I reviewed the guest list and seating arrangements. It was clear that they had invited all the important industry figures, major clients, and press to witness my humiliation and Leo's ascension. On the morning of the party, I woke up at dawn. Standing at my bedroom window overlooking the garden my mother used to tend, I mentally prepared myself. I carefully applied my makeup, styled my hair in an elegant updo, and slipped into the red dress. As I fastened my mother's pearl earrings, a cherished family heirloom, I looked at myself in the mirror and thought, they have no idea what's coming. I arrived at the venue 30 minutes after the official start time. The red dress had the desired effect. Conversation stopped, and cameras turned towards me. I saw a flash of concern cross Dad's face. For the next hour, I worked the room, reconnecting with clients and industry partners. I reminded them of the tough decisions I'd made and the challenges we'd overcome together. At 8:30, the event coordinator signaled for the formal program to begin. Dad took the microphone and spoke about the company's history and traditions. Then, with a false smile, he announced Leo as the new CEO and unveiled the Heritage Collection as Leo's project.
It was a blatant lie.
Leo stepped forward, trying to look confident. He launched into his prepared speech, claiming credit for my work. As he spoke, I maintained my smile and made eye contact with key industry figures, whose expressions ranged from confusion to disbelief. Then Dad said, "And now a few words from April, who has been an important part of our company's recent history." I walked to the stage with measured steps and took the microphone.
Thank you, Father.
First, I'd like to congratulate Leo. Taking on leadership of a family business is no small responsibility. As many of you know, 12 years ago, Thompson Furniture was on the verge of bankruptcy. Our journey to tonight's celebration has been remarkable. I'm particularly proud of the Heritage Collection we're launching tonight. These designs represent my personal vision for honoring my grandfather's craftsmanship while embracing sustainability and modern functionality. I continued, as I look towards the future, I'm excited to continue innovating in the furniture industry. The relationships we've built over the past 12 years mean the world to me, and I look forward to our continued collaborations, albeit in a new chapter. The applause was thunderous. For the rest of the evening, I circulated among the guests, answering questions with enigmatic responses. Change is the only constant in business. The future holds exciting possibilities, I'd say. The next morning, when I arrived at the office, my personal belongings were packed in 3 cardboard boxes. My name was removed from the door, and Leo's was put in its place. Stella handed me the termination papers with a sad look in her eyes. "This is wrong," she whispered. I signed the papers with a steady hand. "Everything happens for a reason, Stella. Trust the process." Dad and Leo were there, expecting me to resist or break down. But I just said, the severance is generous. I appreciate it. The company is in your hands now. I wish you both success. I walked out of the building, carrying 12 years of my life in those 3 boxes. There was a strange sense of lightness, even though the betrayal still hurt. The following Monday, I signed a lease for a former textile mill across town. By Wednesday, I filed incorporation papers for Thompson Heritage. Phone calls started pouring in immediately. Lily was the first to call. Is it true? You're starting something new. I want in. Ethan and Mia followed suit. 3 weeks after the launch party, the industry's leading publication, Furniture Insights, ran a feature story about my ousting. The article detailed my 12-year transformation of the company and raised questions about the wisdom of replacing me. Dad called me angry. What did you say to Furniture Insights? This makes us look terrible. I replied calmly. I didn't speak to them. The reporter was at the party and drew his own conclusions. I saved the company twice, once from financial ruin and now from outdated thinking. Then, Victor suddenly withdrew from the partnership negotiations with Thompson Furniture. Industry rumors said he was worried about the exodus of talent and the negative press. Without the partnership, Leo's international expansion plan collapsed. Meanwhile, Thompson Heritage secured its first major contract with Restoration Haven. The collection I designed after discovering the betrayal, named Evolution, received rave reviews at the industry trade show. Leo's revised version of the Heritage collection, stripped of my innovative elements, was largely ignored. Within 4 months, Thompson Heritage recruited 20 former Thompson Furniture employees, secured contracts with 5 major retailers, and established a state-of-the art production facility using sustainable manufacturing techniques. 6 months after my dismissal, I stood on stage at the American Furniture Design Awards, accepting the Innovation Excellence Trophy for Thompson Heritage's debut collection. The industry leaders gave me a standing ovation. One Tuesday afternoon, my assistant told me Dad was here to see me. He entered my office, looking older and more tired. This is impressive. You've done all this in 6 months, he said. He then admitted that he'd made a terrible mistake. He was wrong about Leo being ready and wrong about my leadership. He explained that it was old-fashioned thinking, pressure from some clients, and maybe a bit of jealousy that led to his decision. I asked him what he wanted. He asked for my help, maybe a partnership to stabilize the company. I shook my head. I won't come back. That chapter is closed. But I might consider a limited collaboration for the sake of grandfather's legacy and the remaining employees. We discussed the terms, and I made it clear that it would be a strictly business arrangement. As he was leaving, he said, "Your mother would have been proud of you." 2 weeks later, Leo announced his resignation as CEO of Thompson Furniture. The company appointed an interim CEO while they searched for a permanent leader. Over time, the collaboration between our companies helped Thompson Furniture stabilize. Eventually, I became the primary investor in a buyout of Thompson Furniture. I reunited the Thompson legacy under my vision, and my father took on a ceremonial role as a heritage ambassador. Today, as I sit in my office overlooking the production floor of what is now simply Thompson, I see my grandfather's original workbench in the lobby. A photo of him, Dad as a young man and me as a child, hangs beside it. On my desk sits a photo of my mother holding me as a baby. Sometimes, I wonder what she would think of everything that has happened. I like to believe she would be proud of how I handled the betrayal with dignity and strategic thinking. The most important lesson I've learned is that true family businesses are built on merit and trust, not just blood. I refuse to let betrayal define my future or the company's. If my story can inspire anyone going through a similar situation, I'll be glad. Please share your stories in the comments if you've ever turned betrayal into triumph. Your support has been a light in the darkest part of my journey.